Persian Garden Center here in Seattle, Washington. I am so excited to show you guys everything that he has done. Chihuly has been one of my favorite artists for a long time, so let's go check out his sculptures and installations.
So right when we walked in, we were immediately in this really dark space. And so this glass forest is what this piece is called, was so vibrant. We read that the glass forest elements are created by simultaneously blowing and pouring the molten glass from the top of a stepladder to the floor, where the deflated bubble solidifies. The glass stalks or stems are arranged in an enclosed space and illuminated with electrically charged neon and argon. With their globular collapsed bases and gracefully ascending stalks, it says they appear to be shaped by and yet also defy the forces of gravity. And I would agree with that completely. It was breathtaking. Okay, so this next room you entered into, the lights were back on, and one of the things I loved about looking at this was we really got to see how a famous artist can also be inspired by art history and other artists who have created before him. So this was the Northwest room. It says, since Chihuly was a native of the Pacific Northwest, he's been influenced by Native American culture. In his cylinder series, Chihuly experimented with glass thread drawings on glass vessels, inspired by the Navajo textile designs, which they also had hanging. This method requires colorful threads to be carefully laid out in an intricate design before being fused onto the vessel in its molten state. The process was informed by the artist's background in weaving. After we left the Northwest room that had more of a Native American vibe to it, we then entered the sea life room, and it was so cool. There was a 15-foot sea life tower that Chihuly said took inspiration from the sea and the Puget Sound, which I also got to go see while I was in Seattle. This room was incredible because every single object in here had inspiration from a lot of sea-like creatures like starfish and octopus with conch shells and sea anemones and urchins and manta rays. It was incredible. And they also showed the drawings that he did to plan out these sculptures.
Okay, so this is so cool because you can see his sketches. So whenever I have you guys start by doing a sketch of something or practice something out and make a plan and brainstorm, even the best artists still start with plans before they turn them in to real pieces of art. Just love the detail with everything, every little piece, and the way the light reflects.
Okay, so this was probably my favorite part of the whole exhibit. So this is the Persian ceiling, and it is breathtaking. Right when you walk in, it's just a burst of light and color. So Chihuly began the Persian ceiling doing things like this back in '86. He started creating all these forms, but it wasn't until later that he thought to put them above you. So they are lit from above, meaning there's lights above the glass forms, and then they rest on a glass pane so we get to walk under them. Chihuly once said, "Glass is the most magical of all materials. It transmits light in a special way." And you can really see it in this room, the way that the colors played on the wall, the way it played on each other's faces as we walked through. It was incredible.
You see a birthday hat? What else do you see? A flamingo?
That looks like a flamingo.
It does look like a flamingo. What else can we find?
That looks like a cup.
Yeah?
That blue thing looks like a cup.
You're right.
Okay, so now this next room is called the Mille Fiori, which I probably pronounced wrong. It's Italian for 1,000 flowers. Chihuly assembles so many gardens of glass that include all these different floral glass works in them, and he's done these in a lot of different places. I've gotten to see a garden of glass of Chihuly in Tennessee before, in the gardens of Cheekwood, close to Nashville. So this was really cool to see it in this room. My daughter really loved the purple and loved seeing everything. It was really incredible.
Holy cow. You see purple? Wow. Okay, the vibrancy of these colors, of this glass garden, this creek looking thing, is incredible.
What does the big tower look like to you? What does that look like?
That looks like octopus.
An octopus? No, don't touch.
Okay, so now we're entering this new room of two of Chihuly's wooden rowboats. One is filled with ikebana elements, and one, he says, are Najima floats. And I'm probably pronouncing these wrong, but this just also shows you how he gathers inspiration from other art forms. So the ikebana is Japanese, a Japanese art of arranging flowers. And so he got this inspiration from some of his trips to Japan.
I love the shadows that it makes on the walls.
Okay, so this next room was all about Chihuly's chandeliers. He has always had an interest in architectural settings and how art interacts in spaces. And one time when he was showing his art at the Seattle Art Museum, something wasn't really clicking or fitting, and he faced a challenge where he ended up fixing it by creating his very first chandelier to kind of make all the pieces in the room go together and be a part of the space. He now has done chandelier series over the years in a bunch of different places. One that was most notable is one in Venice, where he pushed scale and placement and made 13 chandeliers hung in outdoor sites throughout the whole city. It's a really cool thing to look at.
That looks like Elsa. An Elsa tornado. Yeah, how much do you think these weigh? They take them apart, I think, because they don't ship them all together like this.
How?
I don't know. That's me guessing.
All right, so when we walked in here, I did not think of these as a forest at first. They were these beautiful like wavy bowls of all these different colors, but they actually were on these rods, and Chihuly called these the Machia forest. He began this series with the desire to use all 300 colors available to him in the hot shop, which you really can see all these different cool color combinations and color schemes coming together. Each work is speckled with color, which comes from rolling the molten glass in small shards of colored glass during the blowing process. To complete the piece, he adds a lip wrap of a contrasting color. So remember, contrasting colors are opposite on the color wheel, and they make them really stand out. This is the glass house and glass house sculpture. The glass house is the centerpiece of all of Chihuly's garden and glass center. Throughout his career, Chihuly dreamed of this exact piece, of working on a design for a glass house with the artwork within it. It's one of his largest suspended installations. It measures about 100 feet long. Isn't that crazy? It also is really cool how the perception of the artwork varies greatly with natural light and as the day fades into night with not as much light, maybe moonlight. Don't you think this would look so different like during a sunset or maybe a sunrise? I wish we could see it at different times throughout the day, but it was also really cool seeing it during the daylight.
So this is just absolutely incredible. Mainly, I love the color scheme. It's all warm colors. I love the way that we get to see what the sunlight does coming through it. And I love that you get to see such a huge monument of Seattle interacting with the piece. Oh my goodness.
Look at that. Have you seen one like that before?
Oh.
Like this, like more blocky square?
No, like the geometric rocks. I haven't seen one like that at all of his. It reminds me of rock candy.
Yeah.
Also still so cool how much you get the Seattle Space Needle in. Look at how like vibrant these reds are in the grass.
Hey babe, stay close. Stay close.
Oh my goodness. It makes it like, it seems totally normal sometimes. Like it would totally make sense to me if this was like a real thing in real life. It's so effortlessly blended in, you know?
They're purple.
They're purple! To me, it just makes sense that these are here. Like, if someone told me this was just a new environment I've never been in before, I would say, yeah, that checks out. They look incredible and cohesive, like they belong together. These man-made objects in nature.
You tell left now. The plaque on the wall coming in here said like natural animal reserve or something like that, animal reserve, and I was like, what? For what animals? Yeah.
Well, for bunnies.
Apparently they got one bunny. Ow.
I wonder what would happen if one of the
That makes sense
animals
why they
broke
had some
a
of those,
piece.
like leafy greens over there. Yeah. Like they're eating.
Look, yeah, this is what they eat right here. So they like literally plant this for the animals to come interact with it.
Glass doesn't stick to cold steel. Has anybody here seen glass blowing before? A little bit? Okay, cool. Did you see it out of a 1967 Airstream trailer? I don't think so. This is sort of unique to our setup here. But in that furnace, we have about 150 pounds of clear molten glass. Alana's going to show you what happens when we stop turning it fresh out of the furnace. It wants to fall to the floor. We're not going to let that happen. It's messy and smoky and gets everywhere. It's not a good thing. So Alana's going to spend a little bit of time coming up with a pretty specific shape on our gather here. Most of the glass is off the end of the blowpipe. You can kind of see that. It's nice. We have a clear gather here. Once we get that shape the way we want it, right about now, we're going to pump a little bit of air in the mouthpiece in. Tap it with our thumb and then keep your eye on the gather in about 3, 2, tap it pretty fast. There it is. So now we're blowing glass. Well, now I know what you're thinking when Alana came out of the furnace. I did mention that it's clear glass. It doesn't look very clear right now. It's glowing orange. but simply because of the high heat. Anything that hot is gonna glow orange. We are going to make something a little more to the scale of the pieces that we have on the stage. That means we need more material. So in that Alana blew into this, tapping in with their thumb, the heat had nowhere else to go but out through that molten mass. If you wait too long, it doesn't work. It gets too cold. It happens pretty fast. With less than a minute, we gathered, shaped it up, put the air into it, now we're done. So this is our starter bubble. Got it. Something to keep in mind when we're doing this demonstration, this is how the work in the exhibition was made, in this fashion. Each chandelier part, all the spears, all the big giant floats, and the Machia, started out as a gather on the end of a blowpipe, just like this. And if you can sort of imagine what we have inside the furnace here, bottom half of the chamber, the giant ceramic bowl. When it's full, it holds about 150 pounds of glass, clear molten glass. And I want to say that's anywhere between 12 and 15 gallons, to give you some sort of idea. They measure it in pounds, but it's liquid, so maybe there's 2.5 to 3 5-gallon buckets of glass inside, to give you some sort of a reference. You can only gather so much at once. This is going to be all the glass that we're going to use, all to clear that glass that we're going to use. If we wanted it more, if we wanted to make it bigger, we simply take another gather, but we have to let this gather get cold. The relative term here up on the stage, it's about 1,000 degrees before you gather on anything. But you might have noticed we rushed right over, and Alana is coating the outside of our gather with frit, F-R-I-T, crushed up glass. You can see some of the colors in our palette here. Got some reds and some yellows and some greens and some blues. A few mixes down the bottom there. They come in different sizes. What do we have up here now? This is kind of a rich gray, I think it's called. It's kind of an opaque gray, kind of a translucent gray actually. And then we have, that's kind of a cobalt blue. They're a little bit different size. The gray is a bit larger. So the cobalt blue is kind of like coarse sand. Grays are just a bit larger, the size of fish that we have, but they are small enough. The heat from the gather is hot enough, they stick right to it. You kind of see sort of coating the outside of that, kind of like sprinkles on an ice cream. You guys like ice cream? I like it. Cupcake. Anyway, back to the show. Sorry. That's all the color that we're going to use for this layer, but you might have noticed it sticks and doesn't quite melt in. So the second furnace we have is the glory hole. It's at about 2250 degrees Fahrenheit. We turn it on in the morning. It takes about an hour to get to that temperature. We use it simply for reheating the piece while we're making it, while the furnace, the melting furnace, stays on all the time. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So Alana's starting to let this fall, get a little bit longer, simply by getting it hot and letting it stretch. Holding it down, it's gonna fall, it's gonna flow. Cooling off the tip of the bubble, that's gonna be, we're making a bubble bowl. Yep, it's gonna be the inside of our bowl. We're making a bubble bowl. We have a sample of it right here. I'll sort of show you and of course explain it as we go. Filling this up, essentially making a spear. We're gonna make a ball off the end of the blowpipe. I'm gonna start helping out a bit more actively here. I'm gonna heat the blades of the jack, which doesn't take long in my 2,000 degree furnace. Get them hot enough and coat them with a little bit of beeswax that's going to lubricate the blades so that we can carve into our bubble. We're going to incise a line right off the head of the blowpipe. And that's going to be the bottom of our bowl. We're getting bigger, that means we're getting thinner, so it's going to heat up faster, it's going to cool down faster. Blowing? So there goes that line, incising that line, constricting the bubble down. Starting to take shape here now. That's the bottom of, Alana's working on the bottom of the bowl. Blowing. And I'm inflating. I'm blowing and talking at the same time. I wasn't doing that back in March. Back in March, I'd be down here blowing in the pipe. Sort of in the spot position. blowing the pipe. I don't do it like that anymore. I got my mask on, I got my pocket puffer. This is a brand new invention. We have our nice sphere. It's cooling down, and then it's getting bigger. It's cooling down. The back side by the blowpipe is still the warmest part. So Alana's pushing back, and that's tucking that bottom in and making the flat part where it's going to sit on the table. Right here. So it's kind of like this right now, on the blowpipe, like this. And then I know everybody's wondering, well, now how are you going to turn it into a bowl call? And Alana's going to show you. See the door there, Alana? Okay. So, here comes the tricky part. We have our sphere. We're going to heat the very tip of the sphere. And instead of inflating it anymore, we're going to create a vacuum. We're going to inhale down that blow. Glass needs to cool down slowly. It'll crack. It'll break. If we were to just set this piece out on the table, you're going to see we're going to break it off the blowpipe. So I just came over here, and then within seconds it would crack and break. It is shiny. Yeah, I like that. Chill that section. We want it to break in one spot and one spot only, right where it's going to sit on the table. So Alana reaches the blades of the straight shears in there. I got the pizza peel ready. Makes a great bowl loading device. A little bit sharp down there generally, so we're going to take care of that with our hot torch. Hot torch makes quick work of anything down there that might be sharp. Instantly take care of it. So we don't cut our little fingers in the morning. We got to unload the piece, and we have a beautiful bowl by Alana letting you know. Nice job, Alana. Give Alana a round of applause.